My 3 kids, they're all acting. Ruby, my daughter, and Sonny and Louie, my 2 sons, they've all started acting of their own volition. And my wife's an actress, so they had no chance, basically. What are they going to do?
Please welcome to the stage, Andy Serkis. All for you. Welcome. Oh, I'll take one of those.
Hey, everybody. Hey.
It's so nice to have you.
Oh, it's wonderful to be here. I'm really, really loving Pittsburgh. What a great city you've got. It's amazing. Yeah, it's awesome.
First time here?
Absolutely, 100%, yeah.
Yeah. Do you do a lot of Comic-Cons? I mean...
I have not done in the past, but over the last few years, I've gradually been doing a couple more. So, not a lot, but a few more, yeah. So I'm enjoying them. It's really lovely meeting all of you guys. The fandom is just so important, and you are so passionate about the projects, and it really, really helps us to kind of keep an eye on what we're doing and keep our game up. So we really thank you so much for your constant support and
gotta give it up.
All your great goodwill. You're amazing. You're amazing.
It's once again, welcome to Pittsburgh. But I got to ask, what exactly is motion capture acting? I hate to sound like pretty much of a novice here, but he actually says, "Oh, it's mocap." I go, "Mocap? I have no idea what you're talking about."
Okay, it's not really called mocap anymore. It used to be called mocap.
There it is.
It's now called performance capture. And so very briefly, I can tell you the kind of the history of it. It actually came out of the medical industry. It was a way of analyzing gait and movement and physicality after injury. So they used to put these little sensors on, say if you broke your ankle, you could then put these little sensors which would then be tracked by cameras that could just tell if you're back in alignment or not, if you were running.
So something an occupational therapist or a physical therapist would use.
That's where it came from originally. And then back in the day...
Let me get you a little more volume.
Oh, sure.
Go ahead.
So then can you hear me now? Yeah, okay, great. So then it became used in the film industry as a way of tracking performance. Well, actually, it started off in the video game industry first for tracking martial artists or tennis players, or for footballers to get the proper movement. And then the film industry took it over. And so what it is basically is you put on a suit, and then you have a full set of markers that go all over your body, and then you have cameras in 360 degrees, and that each of these are like tiny little GPSs, if you like, So, and they're joints in your body. So every single movement that you make can literally be tracked, and you've got, because the cameras are all pointed at them, they become an item in space that is related to lots of these other markers. Okay, so that's motion capture, and you could basically put a motion capture suit on a dog, or in fact, we do in the film industry sometimes horses or those movements. You can just put these tiny little markers, and it tracks the movement beautifully and very accurately. But that's not the same as an actor's performance. That's only one part of it, tracking the movement. So, for instance, when we created Gollum, I did all the physical movements, and that was very accurately tracked. But the facial capture is what then makes it takes it onto another level, and that was something that has grown over the years, where you're now having these tiny little facial markers with a head-mounted camera that can then track every single facial expression. So the combination of that plus recording the audio at the same time just means you get the whole performance in one hit. And then over the years, the way it's progressed is that it goes from being just inside a studio, but actually shooting on location. So you can actually go out and film in the wilds, in any sort in snow up in the mountains, or in anywhere. And it's very cold wearing one of these suits, I have to tell you. But yeah. But that's the principle. So that's really the journey over the last 2 decades from motion capture to performance capture.
Is it an uncomfortable?
No, you completely forget about it. I mean, it is. A lot of people think that it's not the same as acting normally, conventionally with a costume. The only difference is, like a costume, when you're acting, you choose your costume very carefully, and the shoes that you wear, the kind of the heels they've got, or the way that you might choose to be wearing sneakers for a character, or very tidy, smart brogues for another character, or whatever. Those things can really influence you and help you. But so you have to do some of that work when you're wearing a motion capture suit. Although you can actually, for instance, if you want the character to be heavier in a motion capture suit, you can wear weights, or you can. And when you're going through the rehearsal process of working with a motion capture suit, you can actually see on screen the character that you're playing, and it's like a magic mirror. You lift up your arm, but you see the actual character lifting their arm up and down. So you might want to play, if you're playing a character that is carrying a lot of weight, then you can actually. We experiment with all sorts of ways of making the physics of it actually work really well.
So it's like a green screen kind of suit?
No, they're normally grey.
Grey?
They're normally grey, actually, yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, it's really over the last 10 years, it's become very much mainstream way of making films. And of course, it's used not only in film production, but it's also used in what we call previs, which is, in visual effects films, when you're trying to block out a scene, you don't know how you're going to shoot it on a real location. You can actually build the whole world in a video game environment, and then have the actors, come in motion capture suits and block it all out there, so that when you actually get on location, you've already done a lot of the planning. Wow. So it's an incredibly useful filmmaker's tool, and it really helps. I mean, it's very much going to be part of the future.
How did you get involved in this? It seems like...
Yeah, well, there was a particular project which, I'm not allowed to talk about.
Of course not.
But you will know what it is. And that project was, the director involved was very keen to really start to push this technology forward, because up until then, I mean, there was a sort of a real break in the difference between CG characters, monsters, things you didn't really care that much about, and then characters that you can emotionally relate to. And for that, you would need, so beforehand, the actors who were imagining these CG creatures would have to look at a tennis ball on a stick, and that would be, it would just be all about their imagination. But this particular role that I played, which you all know what I'm talking about, basically allowed the other actors to act with another actor on set wearing a motion capture suit and play that character. So it really was a big transition from, as I say, from CG characters to CG kind of monsters to CG characters that you really connect with.
So back it up farther. How did you get involved in acting in the first place?
So I had no intentions of becoming an actor when I was growing up. I was a painter, and I wanted to do graphic design, and I loved art, and I studied visual. I went to a university in the UK called Lancaster University, and I went there specifically to study visual art. But what I didn't realise was that you had to do another subject in the first year, and so there was a very good theatre studies department who kind of had an experimental theatre that you could change the auditorium around and build sets in different ways, and I was really interested in that. So I got involved with the theatre studies department, and then I gradually was asked to be to act in various different plays along the way in my first year. And by the end of my first year, I just thought, this is what I want to do. There was one play I did which was called Gotcha by Barry Keefe, and it was I had to really go deep into this character, and it just made me go, this is what I've got to do. This has completely changed the direction of my life. I then had to phone my parents up and say, you know what, I don't think I want to study visual arts, which was horrific to them in the first place. I want to become an actor. And they were like, you know, it was just like, they were like horrified. They were like, what has gone wrong with our son? You know, it was literally. It was a kind of, which I'm quite glad of, actually, at the end of the day, because there's nothing like your parents putting barriers in front of you to make sure that you push forward in the thing that you really want to do. I think reverse psychology really works.
Do you still paint at all?
I do. I love painting. I absolutely adore painting. I don't have that much time for it because I'm doing a lot of directing now. So all my time is taken up, evolving new projects that I'm working on and or shooting. You know, so if anybody, out of interest, how many people here paint? I'm sure a lot of you do. I'm sure there's, yeah. I mean, you will all know that it's not something that you can just pick up for a little. You know, you have to get back into the zone. You have to kind of really, if you're really going to do it properly, you have to sink a lot of time into it, which I'd love to do, and maybe in the future I will.
Do you still have some of your paintings around?
No, because my wife won't have any of my paintings up at all. Not any, because they're a bit too gruesome.
What kind of style? You're
dark.
Dark.
Well, they're kind of sort of abstract characters, and also quite dark themed kind of environments, which are sort of surreal and dark. Not the sort of thing that actually you probably want to gaze at all day long.
So I got to ask you, during COVID, you read the entire book, The Hobbit, online for charity. Can you tell us a bit about that? How that even came to be, and what's the charity?
So, as everybody was feeling, during COVID, it was a horrible time, and I just felt what a lot of people were feeling trapped. A lot of people were feeling, they weren't allowed to go out, or they were trapped, or just kind of in their heads were trapped. And I just felt it. I just thought, is there a story that I can read that would then give parents, perhaps, who have got kids around them all the time and have not had a break, in those long days when you couldn't get out. So I thought, well, what if I did a reading? And then The Hobbit sprang to mind, because it was just such an amazing adventure story. It took you out, it took you beyond, and was about journeying. The whole story of The Hobbit is about journeying. So I thought it would be, and I was very closely associated at the time with a charity called Best Beginnings, and also our National Health Service, who were doing amazing work. I wanted to raise some money for them, because they were just doing extraordinary work. So I set up this reading, and it was great. It was fantastic. We got a lot of support from the Tolkien estate, and they said, we'd love you to do it. So I did it. It was a non-stop, all-in-one day reading from, I think it lasted 11 hours and 2 minutes, and I had 4 2-minute breaks in that. During the reading of it, I don't know if any of you heard it. Did any of you hear it? Not one of you. Oh my goodness. Oh no. Oh yeah, there's a few. So during the course of it, of course, you go a little bit stir crazy, and there were whole passages that I read, and I know, of course, I know The Hobbit very, very well, and but there were whole passages that I read, and then I got to the end of the paragraph, and it would go, said Gandalf, and I'd been reading it as another character. But it was just, I was delirious by about halfway through. It was live. It was a live reading that lasted 11 hours. And
was there a visual component to it, or just
no? Well, I was on screen. I was on screen. It was a Zoom. It was a Zoom filmed reading. I loved doing it. Although it was. Before starting, it was like, wow, here we go. I was terrified. The night before, it was just like, boy, am I going to get through this, But it was really, it was exciting to do.
Great challenge.
It was a huge challenge, yeah. It was an armchair marathon.
How many people do you think tuned in? Out of curiosity.
Oh, I know a lot of people did, because we managed to raise like $250,000 for more, actually, for the National Health Service. So it was well attended. Yeah.
If you could pick another book the next time, what would that possibly be?
War and Peace. No, I'm joking. Something easy. Wow.
Do you read a lot?
I do read a lot. Yeah, I'm not as much as I'd like, actually, because most of the time I'm working on films, and unless I'm doing research reading for those films, I haven't read like a novel for ages, because it's always associated with the work that I'm doing. So it's generally, it's research. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I want to go back to there was a student radio station you were part of in the 1980s. We're going back to school. And you did air radio plays. So that sounds almost similar to kind of like the whole Hobbit thing, doing a reading. How did that come about? And can you remember any specific plays you might have done? That
was closely associated really with the Nuffield Theatre, which was the theatre that I was telling you about. So we would do excerpts from plays that we were doing at the time, and there were a whole range of plays, from Shakespeare through to contemporary playwrights, and Bertolt Brecht, and all sorts. I mean, a whole myriad of different ones.
You were allowed to pick them. You were in charge of that?
Yeah, no, I wasn't in charge of it. We sort of collectively we chose the ones that we were keen on doing. But it was a brilliant. It was a brilliant university, because it was very progressive. It allowed you were allowed to do this thing called an independent studies degree, so you could sort of construct your own degree, and I chose that because I had so many different varying interests in different areas of both set design, and it's interesting really, because I think my degree in the end was called Theatre Design and Movement, which were actually nearly all the things that I've ended up doing in my lives. My several lives, my many different lives as lots of different characters. Actually, it does feel like that. It does. That's the other thing about acting, is that you do feel that, and one of the great things about it is that you get to start again every time you play a character. Mm-hmm. You feel like you're reinvestigating a part of yourself, or looking at a part of yourself that you've never looked at before, and it does feel like you've lived many lives, which is kind of interesting. What was I talking about?
Theater plays on the radio.
So this university was fantastic for that. It allowed you to really plug into the things that you were passionate about, and study those rather than just following one curriculum.
So right now, I'd like to see if we can get some questions from the audience. I want to be the police guy here.
Okay.
Got to make sure we abide by all the rules because of the union strike. No mentioning any specific movie, TV show. How many people have a question? Head over to that wall where Kyle is. And nobody's going to put you in question jail, but I will shut it down if it's not appropriate. All right? Are we good with that?
Oh, yeah, totally.
Okay. So I'll be the bad guy. You'll hear a loud buzzing sound.
All right, first question, name and question.
My name is Carol, and I just want to know, it's been well over 20 years since Lord of the Rings. Never mind.
No, go. But,
all right, it's
since a certain fantasy adventure.
Since that. And I just want to know, do you get sick and tired of people mentioning it to you, or are you comfortable with that legacy?
100%. I mean, I am so proud. Everyone is very proud of the work that they did on that, and it's the fact that people still have loved those projects. And still are passionate about them, and still remember them very fondly, or grew up with them. I mean, I'm literally every day someone will come up to me and talk to me about those films. So there isn't a day that passes where that isn't the case, or talk to me about the character that I played that I can't mention, and you know, so I'm you know, it's a huge part of my life and has been, and if you're going to be part of a franchise, that was certainly one to be proud of. You know.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next question.
All right, Lauren, and my question is, you've done a lot of mocap and you've played yourself in things before. Do you watch your own movies, and do you have a preference of seeing yourself either playing a creature character or playing as yourself?
That's a great question. Yeah, very good question. The fact of the matter is, and this is absolutely true, I never think of them as any different. I don't kind of go, oh, well, that's, you know, a motion captured role, that's a more conventional on-screen role. I don't see them like that. I just see them all as characters, and some of them I think I could have done better, and some of them I judge them in different ways. But I've never thought of performance capture as any different to acting. So it's just you either wearing a conventional costume and makeup, or a digital costume and makeup, in effect, really. Because as an actor, the process is exactly the same in terms of climbing into the character and, you know, walking in that character's shoes or feet or claws or whatever. Great question.
Hi, my name's Caitlin. I've just been wondering, since you've done so much acting and now you're starting to do more directing, do you have a preference for whether you like doing acting more, directing more, and why, if you do?
I think, as I say, you know, that story about where I started off, I think I've always wanted to tell stories visually, whether it be painting, whether it be, you know, I've always had that in me. And so you know, after kind of reaching my mid-30s and thinking, and, you know, I'd already, you know, even when I went down to New Zealand to do that film that we're not allowed to talk about, that I'd already started planning to direct and started making short films and so on. So it's always been part of the plan, alongside acting, and I love them both. And actually, what is brilliant is and you know, I feel very privileged to do, is to go between the two, because there's nothing better than just to sinking your mind and head into a character after you've been working on a film for 2 years, and you've been, you know, helming it and living. It's a difficult, very, very all-consuming. They both are all-consuming in different ways, but directing is. You have a lot of ups and downs with directing, you know, getting the project up on its feet, getting it financed, getting the script right, getting everything right. You know, it's a monumental task getting a film made, and it really costs you. You know, I mean, you're doing something you love, so it's first world problems in a sense, but it does take it out of you. And with acting, I always feel recharged, because again, it's like it's entering into something. You come into the whole process at a very late stage. You come in as you're about to shoot, and then you go away and you forget about the rest of it. So you're purely dealing with the character. So I love the kind of exercising different muscles, to answer your question. Thank you.
Hi there.
Hi.
My name is Jonathan.
Hi, Jonathan.
So two quick questions. So what was it like seeing your son in a movie a couple years ago?
Oh yeah, I mean, my 3 kids, they're all acting. Okay. Ruby, my daughter, and Sonny and Louie, my 2 sons, they've all started acting of their own volition. And you know, my wife's an actress, so they had no chance basically. What are they going to do? You know, they just grew up on film sets, on backstages of theatre, and so on and so forth. But you know, we always encourage them to study other things. It's not answering your question, but yes, it was wonderful to see all of them really take off and do their own thing, and it's not easy, I think, for young actors who have parents who've been in the profession a long time. to strike out on their own. So it's we're there to support them, but we also, it's very, very important for them to go off and do their own thing and find their own way, path. So it's an interesting one as a parent and also as a mentor / kind of more experienced person who's been in the profession. To guide, but also then allow them to go off and do their thing. But whenever we see them, both Lorraine and I, we're always, we of course think they're really great, of course,
And then my next question is for you. As far as like your performance capture, now when you're, especially like facial expressions, because everything that you do is so emotive, so expressive, do you have to overact or over-emote for the technology to pick up that performance?
No, it's in fact the opposite. It teaches you, actually. Performance capture teaches you to do less and less and less. So for I can't mention the characters, but for a certain character, what I really learned through a trilogy of films, which was not the other film that we're not supposed to talk about. That character that I played from birth through to death really taught me how important it is that performance capture is all about stillness, and it tracks. It really does track your emotional thought that is going on beneath the surface of whatever facial expression. So it's not just about pulling, it's not pantomiming or kind of, pulling expressions. It's if you're thinking and feeling it, that will come through the performance capture.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Hi, my name's Shelby.
Hey, Shelby.
So I was wondering, you've been kind of in this unique position of you play a character very well in a very well-known franchise, taking a break from it, and then going back to the same character. When you realized that you were going to be going back to doing that, was there ever like a fear in your mind of, is it going to be the same thing it was last time? Or was it just, yeah, I got this?
It's always, look, whenever you start filming on a new project, and especially with a gap, it must have been about 7 years or 8 years. I can't remember what it is now. But no, you're still, the nerves come back, and you're still thinking, can I do this? Am I going to get there? Is it going to feel as fresh and instinctive? And am I going to find the character again? I mean, it was slightly different with the character that you're talking about because, I sort of, that character lives with me in a never-ending way. I mean, I kind of can't really escape him, But even so, going back to a project, you are starting from scratch again to a certain extent.
Thank you.
And just to let you know, we have less than 10 minutes, so we probably won't get through the line. You're headed back to your table after this, or you have a photo op?
I think I'm doing photo ops.
He has a photo op.
Thank you.
But you're over in the hotel. Am I correct? He's in the hotel. So to get to his booth, you actually have to go over to the DoubleTree Hotel. That's where your booth is.
That's where the booth is. Yeah.
But the photo op is over here.
Yes.
But let's try and get a few more questions in, and I want to thank you real quick. Thanks.
Sure.
Speed round.
My name is Ryan. When you first started directing, were there any directors that you worked with in the past that offered advice or influenced your style?
I mean, Peter Jackson is just like is just such a phenomenal director and been a mentor to me for years. So and before I even got involved with working with him, I was so admired his movies, and they really spoke to me in a quite profound way. So yes, that, I mean, but there are lots of directors also that have influenced me. Mike Leigh, the British film director, just in terms of character development, he's extraordinary. He was extraordinary to work with as an actor. Matt Reeves is the most incredible director and actor's director, as well as being a visionary. I feel very lucky to have worked with, and Chris Nolan. Incredible directors. Yep.
Hi, I'm Jason.
Hi, Jason.
I was wondering, what was the hardest role that you've ever done?
The hardest role? Wow. I think not, because I can't really talk about the characters kind of out there, sort of, but in an out there way. I think the hardest character I played is one which not many of you would have seen, but actually was an independent film, and it was a character that I was sort of slightly. It was so close to myself that, in fact, I realised that it's so much harder for some actors are really great at playing versions of themselves. So they're able to release a lot of emotion. They're able to play. We all know actors we've seen on screen 1,000 times who just play themselves, but they play themselves in such a way as we learn a little bit more about them, each character they play. Whereas for me, I've always felt much more liberated as an actor, kind of the further away the character is from me. And so this character that I found most difficult was actually one that was incredibly close to me. And I didn't have, I don't know, I watched my wife Lorraine, who is one of those actors who's very, very natural and plays a version of herself, I would say, more often than not. And there's something very bold about that. I mean, when you're climbing into a character that's further away, for me, the transformative process allows me to find freedom and a freedom of expression. And I think that was the hardest thing, playing something close to myself in a way.
We have time for just 2 more questions.
Sorry, guys.
Sorry. But you can go over to the hotel and ask them there.
Hi, Andy. I'm Lori. So I just wanted to ask you, I know that you talked about how, acting is kind of that breath of fresh air after directing, just because it takes a lot more. But from an acting standpoint, as far as playing your characters and doing the performance capture, do you find that lends itself to what your directing style and how you go about directing a project and actors?
As I say, I think the performance capture, I wouldn't say it specifically helps me anymore in terms of direction, because, as I was saying earlier, the performance capture and conventional acting for me are all one. I've never seen them as anything different. So when I direct actors in a performance capture suit, I direct them exactly the same as I would as if I would direct them, or scenes in a more conventional way. So if that makes sense. Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool.
And last question.
Hey, Andy. My name is JJ.
Hey, JJ.
Huge fan of all your performance capture work. Obviously, everything you do has been great. One of my favorite films, probably one of your lesser-known roles, not to mention any names, but I just want to know what it was like working with David Bowie.
David Bowie was just an amazing, amazing human being, and such, he was so humble and so down to earth and funny, and we had a ball. And I had a lot to do with him, and he was just extraordinary. He was such an artist, and had so many interests. So we talked a lot when we were off set, and there were many kind of things that we agreed on, and just in terms of the freedom of artistic expression and the ability to step into different ways of telling a story, whether it be through music or painting or through film or stage, and he was remarkable, but I have to say hilarious as well, really funny, great sense of humor, and just constantly very self-deprecating, and he's a hilarious guy.
Well, thank you so much for taking some time, Andy. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Worked out pretty good.
Thanks.
Give it up, Andy Serkis. He's over in the DoubleTree. Please, I'd hang out with him if I didn't have to do this. Take care. Thank you, sir. Keep it going, Andy Serkis.
This is Ross Marquand, and you are watching Fandom Spotlight, which is awesome. So share, and subscribe. Oh, and have fun and follow your fandom.